Hello and welcome to the NetSurian Q&A. Today's topic explores why do-it-yourself SIM is frustrating and how managed XDR is better. So SIM, of course, is security information and event management, a security technology that's been around for 20 years and has promised early detection. Initially, its predecessor was log management, and you had early detection of operational problems. That's because the network had become distributed. Lots of laptops, desktops had appeared, which previously there was a mainframe at the center of the organization. Later on, when you could add reporting to this capability, you could satisfy compliance regulations. And then ultimately, the rise of the internet, it became clear that SIM's true value was early detection of security problems. Many vendors, NetSurian included, and many users have spent lots of money and lots of time, plenty of brain power on this, and yet ask around. SIM's results are at best underwhelming. From naysayers who say repeatedly that SIM is dead, and those are just clickbait articles, to people who admit that, yeah, it could be good, but it takes such a lot of work. Why is this the case? Let's take a look. Do it yourself or DIY SIM reality. The first one is because it is complex, it's hard to configure. Often users are plagued by a lack of asset inventory. What are all those log sources that need to actually be sending data into the SIM? And then because they are incomplete, you don't know which logs to get, at what time, in what manner, the quality of the logs is poor. There's also plenty of problems with data source management because of the Tower of Babel problem. No two vendors appear to have the same format or the same mechanism to send logs. And this results in poor data parsing, poor normalization, unless you're willing to invest quite a heavy amount in getting the platform up to date. Well, if you've done that, why then you're off to the next problem, and that is SIM in general, because of the number of features that have crept in over the last 20 years, is hard to use. Lots of alerts get fired, and frequently alert fatigue is cited, particularly when there is lack of context and the real alert really won't stand up. This results in lots of false positives, which takes effort to kind of weed out and tune, and this is an ongoing thing. Worse yet, you have false negatives, things that should cause alerts but do not. This is the problem that was reported by Sherlock Holmes in The Silver Blaze. Sherlock Holmes noted that a dog did not bark in the nighttime, and that was the reason why he was able to solve the problem. You also have very often incorrect architecture, not the appropriate amount of resources on premise instead of being cloud based, or vice versa, not enough RAM, CPU, disk, memory, and therefore poor performance. Also, license utilization from some vendors is particularly challenging. Messages per second, events per second, these are all difficult to calculate and can fluctuate up and down. Depending on what you've purchased, it might turn out to be wrong. So, this is hard to use. And then, of course, there is vendor dependency. You have somebody on your team that has become familiar with the self serve, do it yourself SIM, but do they get the appropriate technical support from the vendor? Is there good documentation and training? Is the license limitations sort of well understood by whoever you're on your team? And of course, if that person moves on, then you're sort of starting from scratch all over again. End result, far too many SIM implementations wind up being underwhelming. The performance is poor. They haven't been optimized. They haven't been tuned. They don't have correct amount of resources. They cost an unconscionable amount, and therefore the expectations are largely unmet. Well, enter a managed service. And how does that compare with a lot of the frustration? For a solution like NetSurian's Managed XDR, the platform architecture and licensing are NetSurian's responsibility, and we are expert at it, having done it for a long time. It is necessary for us to get it right, and indeed we do. Configuration, some of those problems that were reported in the previous slides about do-it-yourself SIM, is again a NetSurian problem. We have a onboarding process led by a team of experts that do this all day long, work with you to ask the relevant questions, including asset inventory, and get the audit settings right. This results in good quality logs, not faulty or wrong logging, the right stuff at the right time in the right way. And because we're doing it data normalization is something that is included as part of the service. So this overcomes a lot of the frustrations that you see with a do-it-yourself SOC. The second round was it's difficult to use. Well, in this case, the primary user is the Netsurian SOC, who happened to be, of course, expert in his usage. And they integrate threat intel, anomaly detection, and attack data in order to solve the context problem, escalating to you only the relevant alerts, the ones that have meaning, particularly with guidance. What is it that you're expected to do? XDR overcomes limitations in SIM. This vendor dependency problem that you saw in the earlier slides is absent. We are the manufacturer and the service provider. Documentation insufficiency is not really a factor. License utilization and its usage is managed by us. The end result is that the XDR solution performs well. We're giving it the appropriate RAM, CPU, disk memory, and its performance is Netsurian's responsibility. You can be assured of that because there is an SLA that governs your expectation. Price is transparent, no funny surprises. You know upfront what to expect, how much it's going to cost you, and the expectations are very clearly defined during the sales process and in the service description. So what you can expect, what you'll get from us is well known, whereas in the do-it-yourself SIM, it's a bit of a mystery because it sort of depends on what effort you're able to put into it. So this is how a managed XDR solution is far superior to do-it-yourself SIM. Thank you for your attention.